warning if you don't want any spoilers for this movie, then this review is not for you. But if you're okay with that, keep watching. So, have you ever had a movie where you watch it and it feels like it wants you to like it, but it self-sabotages itself every time you begin to like it? That's the movie Tusk. Tusk is a movie that actively frustrated me the more it went along. The movie is about an obnoxious podcaster called Wallace that gets kidnapped by a serial killer named Howard who has a fascination with walruses, to say the least. The premise by itself seems weirdly interesting, but the execution of it is what's the most confusing about the movie. Before I ramble about my conflicted feelings about this movie, let's get the positives out of the way with this one, because I have a lot more to critique about it than I do positives. I thought the actor who played the serial killer in this movie was entertaining. I feel like his character was enjoyable to watch for the most part. It looked like the actor was just having a lot of fun playing this weird character that is both intimidating but goofy at the same time. I like how he doesn't even make up convincing reasons about him fucking with the main character, even if the main character catches on to his lies, like mixing up morphine with the word tranquilizer, or how his excuse of not allowing phones just wasn't working on Wallace. But he simply doesn't care because he already knows that he already has him trapped. I like the fact that this character is kind of, no joke, a rage baiter where he constantly mocks the pain of the main character. Like, those parts are unironically funny. I like his lies, and it makes you wonder if the stories that he's talking about are even real or not. Overall, I thought that the serial killer actor was good for the most part, even in the most bizarre parts. I feel like in some departments, the main actor does a good enough job whenever his writing isn't complete dog shit. I thought that the prosthetics for the walrus transformation looked good enough for a $3 million film, even if I had my problems with it. And lastly, I thought the premise of a body horror movie of a person slowly turning into a walrus was an interestingly strange but fucked up idea that I thought had some potential to it. Oh, you thought that I had more positives to say? No, that's it. Okay, now this film is kind of rough to sit through. The first 30 minutes of this movie is one of the most obnoxious openers to a movie that I have seen in a bit. The main character is introduced as this asshole type character who has a podcast with his friend called the Nazi Party for some reason, where he just makes a lot of unfunny edgy jokes. I think they only bring it up once that it's weird, and then they just never mention it again. And they have one of the characters wear a shirt that has that name on it. I'm sorry, but right off the bat, you are telling me that everyone involved does not find it weird that he has this weird fixation on calling his podcast Nazi Party, and the fact that he keeps bringing up Nazi shit and has posters of it in the background. I guess the humor from 2014 isn't really that far off from the humor of 2025. Well, I guess it was 2014. That was around the time that people were too busy in Black Ops 2 being racist. How people miss it back then because you can just say whatever you want, which is just a code word for I can't say slurs. Wah. And groups like the Groypers are free to platform as much Nazi shit as they can, while labeling it as just joking around. So I guess his podcast name and his type of humor isn't really that far off from reality, sadly. It's just weird to make that type of person sympathetic. And second of all, who the fuck would wear that merch in public? People would just think that you're weird for wearing that, and it will be a red flag, no pun intended, towards anyone around you. Wait a minute, this is based off of a story that the curator did on a podcast. Why would you want to associate a fictional podcast where they affiliate themselves with Nazi-esque imagery with your real-life podcast? That just doesn't make any sense. I feel like that's just bad advertising. In this movie, I find an interesting choice to reference not only a dated 2006 meme like the Star Wars kid in this 2014 movie, but I also find it weird that the main character wonders what the kid masturbates to. The creator had to write that line into the movie. Why was that even called for? It just makes me wonder if both the character and the writer needs to be put on a list. By the way, I know that it's a low budget film, but I thought that the CGI on the leg was supposed to be a gag on how bad YouTube CGI videos would be back then, but they just play it completely straight and act as if it was real. That fic just looks great. It totally doesn't look like a leg of ham. The writing for the main character in general is written like a has-been hotel character, where he constantly just curses in every sentence that he's saying, as if the writer is going, is it funny that he's cursing? When it's just distracting you from the lack of funny jokes in this movie. You know there's going to be a great comedy when half of the jokes is just, it's funny because they cursed. When I was watching it with a friend, I literally wondered out loud, I wonder if this is being written by a guy in his 40s that thinks that he understands how the internet works when he doesn't. Oh, wait. Speaking of the main character, it is shown that he values his show more than his girlfriend and his friend. He's narcissistic to where he can't find himself in the wrong in conversations.
He's racist towards his girlfriend, which I guess isn't really that surprising because he's a Nazi.
Oh, I'm sorry. A person that just really likes cosplaying as a Nazi.
There's totally a difference between the two.
And he treats everyone as if they're stupid or something that he can take advantage of. The reason he's even at the serial killer's place is that he wanted to take advantage of somebody that had a story to tell so that he can capitalize on it. All around, he's just an unlikable douchebag that I don't really feel sympathetic for. And the movie constantly balances between he's a douchebag and he deserves it, or he's a douchebag but he doesn't deserve it because he's just such a funny guy even though he's an asshole towards anyone around him. At least the movie doesn't fully excuse his actions, with his girlfriend explain how he doesn't like him because he cheated on her and was overall neglectful towards her, but I feel like the movie doesn't acknowledge his shitty behavior enough, which is also ironic because the girlfriend cheated on his friend while he's lost and they're trying to find him. Like, damn, everyone's just a fucking dickhead in this movie. The movie does not feed you enough sympathetic moments with the character for you to actually feel invested in his struggle, and I think that the movie suffers because of the lack of connection to the main character. Because by the time that he goes through his transformation, I'm just like, damn, why didn't you do this sooner? Fucking do it. But after you sit through the most obnoxious first 20 minutes of dialogue in a movie, you agree with a scene of the serial killer and the main character talking for a total of 20 minutes about nothing. Like, I understand why the scene is there. It's just a way to set up the main character getting drugged and so that the villain can monologue about what led up to his fascination with walruses. But I felt like the scene could have just been compressed down a lot. Like, we get it. I don't have to see him finish the whole damn cup in real time. This whole film in general just has a lot of pacing and tone issues. Some scenes will just drag on for way too long explaining something that could just be said in 3 to 5 minutes. That is instead a scene that lasts 20 minutes. It just felt like a short film that was forced to stretch out to an hour and 30 minutes, with a lot of it just trying to fill in time to get to that number. One moment there's a sex scene that transitions into him climaxing, which then leads into a scene of him waking up with his leg chopped off, or his friends trying to find him, next to a scene of him getting, and I quote, into a walrus fight with the serial killer that is dressed up in a makeshift walrus costume as he challenges the main character to fight him to the death as a walrus. The juxtaposition between the horror part of the movie and the raunchy parts of the movie just do not mix well at all. It's confusing as a comedy because I'm looking for the jokes, and it's confusing as a horror movie because there's barely any horror in it, or at least horror that's intriguing. It just feels like this movie is constantly juggling what it wants to be instead of embracing one or the other. And there are times where when they're trying to be serious, it comes off as very forced and at times very inappropriate because of the tone of the movie. They want to give the villain a sympathetic moment of recounting the time that he was raped, which I felt like it could have worked in another movie, but I have two problems with it. I feel like this just feeds into the dangerous narrative that if people were sexually abused, then that means that they're going to go out and kill or injure somebody, and I think just pushing that element into the story as some sort of like justification of why he does what he does is just really fucking gross to imply when real life victims don't fucking do that. Like, I don't know, I just hate the gross implications of that scene. Or how there's another scene where he just keeps a walrus penis or something.
Like, is he keeping it because it reminded him of what happened? Like, why does he just keep it?
I just find it weird that this movie is going into the direction of, oh, he likes penises because he was raped.
Why would he have a trophy of something that literally gave him trauma? The more I think about those details, the more fucked up it gets.
And it gets worse because they don't take it seriously because they're always joking in this movie. I don't know if this movie's trying to be serious sometimes or if it's just delivering a really fucked up joke. The serious moments are now diluted by the comedy bits. It makes moments where it's trying to be sincere into moments that feel poorly integrated into the story, and a scene that is literally comparing a rape victim's experience to them becoming a murderer. How is that not a problematic plot line? Anyways, I'm sorry, but yet again, that detail just fucking irks me. But booper duper, you say, rudely interrupting me. What about the body horror section of this movie? It must be good, right? 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 Even when you ignore all the other elements of the movie and you are strictly focusing on just the body horror aspect of the movie, it is still disappointing. The suit itself is good in still shots, but practicality wise, not really. The main character is kind of just sitting there in the suit. I wish they went more into him slowly transforming into the walrus,
rather than having one scene having his leg chopped off, another scene removing his other leg, then boom, he is the walrus abomination. Like, I just feel like there's a lack of flavor when it comes to the body horror. It feels weirdly held back.
Maybe add some scenes of his stitching failing to stay stitched. Maybe see his body reject this new form of him. Maybe have him constantly bleed on the floor, or something that validates this as more as a body horror movie. I want more of a transformation than a transition when it comes to the body horror. But it just feels rushed, even though this movie takes its time with other scenes. I find it weird that the scenes that you came to the movie for only take up like a small amount of time in reality. I feel like the actor is very limited in what he can do in this suit, so all he can do is just yell around and just flop a little bit. I note that he can't really do a lot because just look at him. But at the end of the day, I'm just listening to a guy just go I guess it works for being a bottle type movie, and it suits its purpose when it comes to that. But I don't know, I was just expecting a little bit more. There's one time in the film where his head goes inward into the suit, and I don't know if that was on purpose or if they just left it in, but that looks really weird. But overall, the suit is okay, if a bit limiting. There's a weird running gag in this movie where Canadians are portrayed as stereotypical as possible, with Canadians having gas stations with Canadian syrup in the background. They say A, and he writes the dialogue for them as if he had one slight argument with a Canadian and then wrote every Canadian as an American hater, which, to be fair, I don't blame people for hating us. Trust me, man, I want to get the fuck out too. But I just get that vibe from watching the scenes with the Canadians. The Canadian jokes don't even feel like jokes. It just feels like the writer just really hates Canadians, but he's just doing it in the most passive-aggressive way possible. It just feels weird. Johnny Depp is somehow in this movie, and he plays a hunter that is trying to catch the serial killer. The whole joke with his character is that he's French and that he's a bit crass. I don't understand why he has to have a scene connecting to the serial killer, because the scene literally adds nothing to the movie. I think they just improvised the moment and just told them to ramble on even if it didn't make any sense. But yeah, his character, I felt like, was just there to monologue about the torture that the serial killer did to his victims, but they don't even have any visuals to back this up. We are literally just watching a barely cut conversation of him explain the premise of how he puts his victims together as a substitute for not showing any of it. I want to see the body horror movie. Stop explaining it to me and just show it to me. And this scene just drags out for around 20 minutes, and it's just not engaging at all. It just felt like a bunch of scenes just making fun of people's accents, and that just being the joke. And the flashback scene is so poorly shot that I'm pretty sure they're not even in the same room with one another. But yeah, his character was just extremely unneeded, and I felt like he was just a monologue machine. The ending to this movie, however, has to be one of the worst endings I have ever seen. So in the end, he is saved by the side characters, which I didn't really bring them up because they weren't really that interesting. But he ultimately gets sent to a zoo where they still treat him as if he's a walrus by sending him mackerel as a treat.
Like, can you treat him like an actual person and give him a fucking meal?
Ah yes, forcibly feed him mackerel, the thing that is associated with his trauma. Why are you treating him like that? Maybe it's the fact that, like, oh, his mind is like an animal, so you gotta keep him in a cage, but, like, I don't know, you don't know that. Maybe he's just trying to communicate? Like, all they did was take out his vocal cords, maybe do, like, some sort of surgery to bring him back, maybe some therapy? No? Okay. And I don't even want to think about the legality of just keeping a human in a zoo, but in the end, it was a really underdeveloped ending that made me even more confused with what tone they were trying to go for. Despite me digging into this film a lot, I do see the potential in this movie both in a strictly comedic way and a strictly body horror type of way. I just wish that it was in the hands of somebody who is more competent in balancing tones and writing than somebody who doesn't even know what the hell they're doing career-wise. It's obviously trying to be a comedy in some way, but I feel like there's a part of the film that desperately wants to be taken seriously. easily. But I think the writing and the writer is too immature to actually do that. I can see a better movie, but the execution of this movie was mediocre. The two actors kept me entertained with how bizarre their performances can be in both a good way and a bad way. It has a really bad problem with juggling both comedic and horror tones to a point that I didn't even know that scenes were supposed to be funny or dark. I laughed at more of the questionable decisions in acting more than I did at the intended jokes. The main character is just an unlikable douchebag that has no redeeming qualities to him, so I failed to sympathize with him. As a comedy, this movie sucks, and as a body horror movie, it's disappointing. And this movie was just frustrating and boring at times to sit through, with my only enjoyment from it being mainly ironic and me seeing a few scenes that kinda worked. It's a 3.5 out of 10, and it hurts me to say that. I think that we should remake movies that had promising potential but were just shit in the end. Like, why repair something that is already good
when you could put 10 times more effort into trying to redeem a movie and give it the proper tools and talent that it deserves?
And I think that this film should deserve that type of treatment. I wouldn't recommend this movie if you're actually looking for a movie, but as a bad B movie, I got some enjoyment out of it. There are some moments that drag on way too long that isn't entertaining, but the moments that are entertaining are pretty good, even if it is bad. By the way, there's a copy of an earlier script of Tusk that was made in 2013 that I think is an interesting read. There's a lot of plot points that feel similar, but there are scenes that are straight up removed or added. And from what I've read, it seems like the writing is a little less irritating. I don't think that this earlier draft would have saved the movie, but it is interesting to read. I feel like this movie was just a product of way too many script rewrites and not a lot of time to actually properly bake in the oven. And that just makes me sad. Tusk, I'm not angry. I'm just disappointed. Anyways, subscribe if you want to, like if you want to, even comment if you want to. I don't care. You do you, and have a good day.
You will die!